how beautiful, how absolutely beautiful it is to see you all out there. It's a testament to your loyalty. And we really, really appreciate having you all here. I know over the past 2 years we have had to deal with an unprecedented pandemic, something we had to grapple with. The residual effects are still quite evident, but when I look out there, most of us are looking younger than springtime. The others are looking like springtime. But let us also just observe a minute of silence for those who aren't here because they may have transitioned during the period, for whatever the reason, and for those who aren't here because physically they might not be able to make it, or conveniently they aren't here today. So, especially for those who have flown away home, let's observe a minute of silence. Thank you much. Okay, before we get into things, can we all stand for the observance of our national anthem? Thank you. I am very partial to that version of Sonny Bradshaw's, the late Sonny Bradshaw's arrangement, because it so much reflects who we are. You know, it gives us a little bit of the colonial past to begin with, and then it jumps straight into the bridge, it jumps straight off into the hot waters and throw in that heavy beat, boy. Give thanks, Cecil, Sonny Bradshaw. I'm going to invite our new executive director to the podium, who will introduce himself. I'll just tell you his name, Leslie Harrow. And before going further, allow me please to acknowledge the presence of our past executive director, Vivian Crawford. Vivian Crawford. Like Gary Sobers, they couldn't get him out at 365, so he retired. Mr. Harrow.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am indeed happy to be here with you this afternoon. As Herbie mentioned, that COVID would have allowed us to stay in for a very long time. And so this afternoon, we are now privileged to be together as one at one place, and we feel safe that we are not exposed to any element, right? And so I want this afternoon to welcome Sir Kenneth Hall, former Governor General of Jamaica, Mrs. Mrs. Judith Hilton, Honorary Consul, Ethiopia in Jamaica, the great man, former Executive Director, Professor, I'll call you sir, Vivian Crawford, a Portlander as myself, a man with a little more stature than I do, and the steps that I really want to follow. Although it's very important to make your own mark, it is important as well to recognize those that have done well before you. And Sir Vivian Crawford would have left for us an Institute of Jamaica that we're all proud of and one that we can build on for the future. I want to also welcome the lady I am sitting beside, that I'm meeting her closely for the very first time, Mrs. Diane Jackson Miller. Dr. Sonia Naya, my pleasure. And I'm going to try this pronunciation. Isis Simoy All. Isis Simoy All. Distinguished guests, members of my team at the Institute of Jamaica, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome this afternoon. Welcome yourself, man. Come on. I know we are going to be having a great time. It's about music. Music is fun. When the music click, you what? You feel no pain. Okay. Let me further welcome you all to Groundation 2023, the inauguration of an exciting and engaging series of activities to commemorate Reggae Month. The Institute of Jamaica owes a lot to our stalwart director, curator of the Music Museum, Mr. Herbie Miller. Who over the many years worked selflessly, tirelessly to ensure a legacy of posterity of cultural music in Jamaica. Against the backdrop of the accomplishments of a stellar achiever, it is with great sense of pride that we as a people, through the Institute of Jamaica, relentlessly explore opportunities to promote cultural heritage. We continue to chart the way forward with meaningful strides through actively encouraging literature, science, and the arts with a reinvigorating approach to recognizing the importance of music to the development of our nation. As we reignite a nation for greatness, we must never forget the importance of our ancestors' struggle for freedom and their appreciation for the value of sound in the form of music. As we understood, this was one of the more effective, ingenious ways of communicating. Influenced by our African heritage and grounded in a philosophy of faith, solace, abiding grace, and oneness. It was embraced by the intriguing and captivating messaging of synchronized sounds in building awareness of the spiritual and social enhancement of the mind. Music has fashioned cultures and societies everywhere, prefaced from past generation to present. It has influenced and modified moods, changed perceptions, and inspired change. Our music has evoked the most positive and impactful emotional reaction in people across the world, which is a testimony of our advancement as a nation within the context of consciousness as a society. The positive impact of music on Jamaica is immeasurable, despite an argument that reggae and dancehall music has negatively impacted our culture. On the contrary, the genres have fueled the passion for human rights, justice across borders, as a vehicle of transmitting positive values, moralities, and a sense of purpose and respect for humanity. In light of the changing dynamics and the need for expanding cultural awareness, we take pride in redefining, rebranding our culture as a vehicle for transmitting positive values and a sense of belonging. We will never forget the words of one of our national heroes, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who posited that a people without knowledge of their history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Our cultural heritage and the imperatives of music in the early development of Jamaica's existence and the recognition of the genres of art as a discipline, each utilizing music, dance, and artistic expression as carrying the message in eradicating the ills of society. As we mark the 11th Groundation celebration, let us reflect on our struggles and amplify a determination towards greatness. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrow. Well, at this point, I think we should invite our guests and moderator and, as we say, get the ball rolling. So let's start with our moderator, Miss Diane Jackson Miller, stalwart in media, one whose ability to pull out of her interviewees all that they did not want to say. Dr. Stanley, let me start over. Dr. Sonia Stanley Nair. Her work on dancehall culture, music in general, the whole idea of the spaces that our music evolved through and out of is unparalleled. Thank you for being one of our guests, Ms. Dr. Nair. And a young toik. This young lady, I tell you, she's challenging, she's smart, she's forthright, and the future is in great hands. Please welcome Miss Isis Samaj Hall. Elambe Motley seemed to, well, he's not here as yet. So let's hope he'll turn up. I think his voice really would add a lot to this first topic, music and political advocacy from colonialism through federation and our independence. And I will be the one to make up the last chair and listen to my colleagues talk about the importance of music in the first period of our independence. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay. Not on? Okay. Okay, there you go. When you hear people like Herbie Miller talk about making up numbers, you can't help but say to yourself if you're sorry for him. You're sorry for him? Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. So great to have you. I think one of the things we learned from the last 2 years is that one of the things we learned over the past 2 years is that as wonderful as the virtual space was for allowing us to come together at a time when we couldn't physically be together, you couldn't generate the kind of energy and dynamism that you get from having people in a room like this, in a Zoom room. Just can't happen. As grateful as we were for streaming music at a time when we couldn't go to live events, again, you simply don't get the energy, the excitement, the vibes that you do from live music. And I think that's part of why everybody's so happy to be here again. So it's fantastic to be here again. Great to see you all. As Herbie mentioned, the topic for this first Groundation, music and political advocacy, colonialism, federation, and independence. It's a really apt topic. I mean, Herbie and his team always have their finger on the pulse of what's important and what's current. And as we celebrate our 60th year, we're introspecting on so many things, where we're reflecting. So the music obviously is a really important part of us and also deserves that introspection. And it's a really exciting topic, I think, because one of the things the music teaches me every day is not to predetermine who is an advocate or who is a prophet. The fact that we have Spice writing an open letter to a prime minister in Dear Honorable, calling for a change to the laws on street vending to enhance the dignity of her people in the way they make a living. Or the fact that we have Jada Kingdom in a tragically appropriate song, given the events of last week, asking a question none of us can answer. How can you violate an 8-year-old? And calling for capital punishment for child molesters. Just to be clear, I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying she's advocating for that. It indicates to us that advocates come in different sizes, different genders, different shapes, and we embrace all of them. And having said that, looking forward to hearing the thoughts from our fabulous panel. This afternoon, Dr. Sonia Stanley Nair, Senior Lecturer in Cultural Studies at the University of the West Indies, Dr. Isis Samaj Hall, Lecturer in the Department of Literatures in English at the University of the West Indies, and of course, we all know Herbie Miller, Director and Curator of the Jamaica Music Museum. So I'm going to ask Herbie, of course, to kick us off by just telling us a little bit about why this topic was important for you to have us explore as we celebrate 60 years.
People, much as I love cricket, I've never been an opening batsman.
First time for everything.
Skipper, thanks for sending me out to face the cherry. Anyhow, the 60th anniversary of our independence, for most of us sitting here as I look around, is something real. We have experienced the pre-independence period, the short-lived federation period, and of course, the lowering of the Union Jack and the hoisting of our own flag. And that experience has the music of the period has helped us to understand better that transition. Because it's not all of us who sit in the history class and the sociology classes and are able to make sense of the lecture, especially at primary school level. But pop culture has really given us such insight, not only into what's taking place here in Jamaica, but globally. And so I thought it apt that we should look through the lens of pop culture at what has transpired for better and for worse. We have accomplished a lot, goes without saying. But we have accomplished much more through culture than the rest of accomplishments. That's my opinion. Especially when you look at music and the arts, and in the last 20 or so years, the Usain Bolt era, certainly, what athletics have been able to do for this country. We must therefore look among that constituency to find out who are our messengers and our prophets and so on. And so I thought by pulling together this year's Groundation to address those things, to look at music, the lyric of music, and even the sound of instrumental music. For example, Rico Rodriguez's August 1962, believe it or not, that's the name of a song of a person blowing a trombone. You know? Don Drummond's Serenade in Sound. It's an ode to that moment. Not to mention Derek Morgan's Forward March, etc. Lord Creator's Jamaica Gain Independence. Going back, we look at the mentor period. There are songs such as Baba Motors, Make We Federate. But on the opposite end, no, no, no federation, no, we don't want it. So the music is really keeping us abreast. And as we go through the weeks, you will see how up to the present, the music includes those kinds of things. So that's what really inspired me to do this particular Groundation, to have an opportunity to look at big youth singing about the Green Bay killing. These are things we try to erase from our minds without coming to grips with it, a sort of catharsis, a kind of reckoning with our past to see why, for example, the violence and the situation that Dion just mentioned is here with us today. And I think unless we look deeply into the violent past out of which Jamaica has emerged from the transatlantic, even prior to that, from the first armada from Spain that displaced the indigenous people, through colonialism to the present, it seems as if violence is at every level, psychological and physical. So I figure this is a great forum for us to go through that. We have many of us in the audience who can address that from a personal point of view, and we have scholars who were born after that period who can analyze it from a scholarly point of view.
Thank you so much, Herbie. And to be clear, we'll start off with the panel, have them establish their thoughts, and we do a little bit of a Q&A at first. And then, of course, a critical aspect of any Groundation is to hear from you. So we will be coming to the floor for your questions and your own comments in pretty short order. Let me start with you, though, Sonia. When you listen to this topic, music and political advocacy, where do you start in your mind? Where do you position this? Hello, hello, hello. Microphone? Yes. There we go. No, it's working.
So first of all, thank you very much, Herbie, for inviting me once again to be part of Groundation. Y'all out there look really wonderful, and I'm very pleased to be here in person and not via Zoom. So to your question, Madam Moderator, it would be remiss of me not to engage in a more historical reflection to answer your question. And for me, when Herbie asked me to speak, I said, let me do what my ancestors are telling me to do. And that has to do with the way in which we must remember the drum. And I'm starting with the word drum for a reason. So my little 3 minutes of engagement is about taking us back through a conversation about the drum. Today, the drum, of course, is represented by what I call Jamaica's national instrument, which is a sound system. And if you leave here with nothing else today, I want you to remember that Jamaica's national instrument, in the way that we can talk about Trinidad's national instrument as the steel pan, that Jamaica's national instrument is the sound system. So let me take you. Yeah, man, you can clap for that. Let me take you back to the 17th century, where I want to begin a conversation about the drum. If you go back to 1717, well, even before that, actually, if you go back to 1717, there is the beginning of a conversation already happening in this so-called New World about the banning of instruments. So the drums, percussive instruments, were banned in this part of the world. They were banning things like obeah, not just in Jamaica, but spiritual practices across the Caribbean. When you think about, just even ways to assemble, and by the time we get to the 19th century, there are laws about vagrancy that are being used to prevent people from associating, from even occupying space in the city. So let's begin to think about the ways in which the state and its apparatuses construct, through even legislative platforms, ways to restrict the very essence of the being of Black people in this part of the world. The very Black people who, through their sweat and tears, through their ways of associating, through their ways of honoring their own ancestors, through the creation of music, the creation of certain sounds, what they brought with them from the old world, these people who were with an imperative to celebrate being suppressed. So in my work, what's occupying me nowadays is this history of entertainment suppression and the ways in which, anytime we talk about Jamaican music, we must begin with an understanding that the drums were the first things being suppressed. And if you think of the drum as a kind of metaphor of being, of ways of being, of the ways in which we connect to the old world, but then in this world, connect to what then becomes the sound system drum, all right? Because when you hear the music of the sound system, you talk about a heartbeat rhythm, but you can't stand in front of those towers of speaker boxes without being pounded, without your heart being affected by them. And so I want us to not think about this word noise. I want us to think about the word sound in sound system. I want us to think about the word sound as a way to think about the ways in which we have tried to live and have our being, and also to push back against the very kinds of suppression that have been stacked against us. And I say us because I am speaking here as a representative of my ancestors. I will leave this 3 minutes of first initial engagement with the fact that the sound system in today's Jamaica, which has infected, and I talk about this infected, I use the word infected after scholars such as Barbara Browning, who talk about infectious rhythms, that these infectious rhythms have been infecting the world in very specific ways. So you think about Jamaican music from Federation, you think about 1940s, the people such as Headley Jones, who we can't leave out of the innovation around the amplification of sound that gives us a sound system. You think about the ways in which the sound um, is very much germane to who we have become as a people with this instrument of the sound system infecting the rest of the world. So Jamaican music and its global influence is very much a part of this conversation in terms of the music created since the 1940s, when we can talk about indigenous Jamaican music, such as mento, coming into the different eras. So the sound system is at the heart of this innovation and the development of indigenous Jamaican music. I'll leave it there.
Okay, Isis, your turn.
Hello, everyone. My microphone is working. All right, so it's really great to see you all here. Hello, I Nancy. All right, so I'll just begin with the words that I have written here, and they may take a bit of a dark turn, but this is reality. So the political history that we've, and when I say we, I mean my generation and the generation that's younger than I am, that we have inherited is not one of inspiration and motivation. Our history books and newspapers tell us of a stunted move towards Pan-Africanism via Garvey, a sidestep away from colonialism, a failed federation, and a shift from British dependence towards what our own memories can recall, which is the power of North American tourist dollars, the terror of Tivoli Gardens incursion, and neo-colonial infrastructural support. That's what we have lived and can remember, my generation and the generation that is younger than I am. This is the history and recent history that flows through Protégé on Blood Money. But it's always been a part of his lyrical messaging. Take, for example, the 2015 single, Sudden Flight, where he speaks to younger Jamaicans' limited confidence in the democratic process when he says, Lordy Doddy, nah join the party, look what the politician them do to Claudia. Look what the politician them do to Jim. Him son resurrected, and look what them do to him. The overwhelming belief that we are only marginally unshackled from slavery is what undergirds Massacre's lyrics on the 2020 single Promise. Tell me family me promise. Me swear say me I live lavish till the day that I vanish. Take a boat go afar and if it's slow up in the 14 parish. Who them a blood clot trick like slavery abolish. While I'm dark and mid huggish. Bust your head with the 40, smooth like polish. This disappointment with the political system is what sits in the call and response between Lila Ike and Skillibang with the Thy Will remix. The system is for business, the system is for business, trick we kill we this way, trick we kill we this way, build we win, wait, can't read the rest of it, going too fast. But the call and response between Skilly and Lila Ike is critical because it considers how it is that the government continues to trick the people, only calling on the people when the people are necessary for votes. And it is a deep contempt for the system's foot on the younger generation's necks that makes Valiant's, more than Skang's, use of dunce so subversive when he sings, no dunce yet, back at the class, man on a subject, on the 2022 single Dunce Check. And then when Valiant follows with his own clarification for the dunce and judgmental educational and formal employment system that is listening in when he sings Jay's on Scholar, and here I'll quote at length. Please don't judge me. Just left school and on a subject. Don't call me a duncehead. I'm a work in progress. Still have to come out and do something. Feel to build a boat and runway. Nothing not going in the country. What me I go do when me hungry? See man with 7 CXC still a thief. Me I go come a enemy because it's weak. Call center full up. Minimum wage still a give out. So how we are go reach? Don't fight me, cause me dress up in a polo. Mark X a blast. Police I say if you slow down. Like a uptown youth alone fish roll around. I provide these lyrics as a way in and a way forward. Jamaica's musical artists have the last 60 plus years been wrestling with and making sense of our political reality. The contemporary artists are no different. The rhythms may have changed, but Babylon still oppresses and the fire still blazes. The sins of the father have indeed come to visit the children and have notably neglected Jamaica's daughters. As gender-based violence pervades the nation and gender inequality continues to surface in the music's lyrics and production. Make we talk the things at today's Groundation.
Thank you so much, Isis. And Herbie, I'm going to ask you to pick up. We heard Isis there mentioning some specific artists, citing specific lyrics. For you, who do you think of in terms of artists as being impactful when you talk about political advocacy?
Way back in the Second World War, we had mentor singers singing. There's one song called Mussolini is a Musmus. And so when I said earlier on the global impact, these are some of our earlier artists who had already been addressing these sort of socio-political issues. In more modern times, by the late 50s, for example, there are songs about Ethiopia. There's Derek Morgan, for example, with his Rude is in Court, Prince Buster, Judge Dredd, the Wailers series of Rude Boy songs, among others. I mean, when you think about Bob, Peter, and Bunny, and the weight that their music had, it goes without saying that our artists were the voice of the people. You think about Ethiopians, everything crashed in response to what was happening, say, around 1967, 68, 69, Delroy Wilson's Better Must Come. These were all songs reflecting the hurt, the pain, the optimism of people. What do we want against what we are having to deal with? On the expulsion of Walter Rodney in 1968, Prince Buster recorded a song called Dr. Walter Rodney. There's another song on Walter Rodney by, I can't remember his name now, the same brethren who sings Satisfaction. Carl Dawkins, thanks, on that issue. But as I said, and as I think Isis mentioned a while ago, we got independence in 1962. The colonial government had it in for Rastafari. And our first independent government unleashed on Rastafari in Coral Gardens, a most atrocious act. Not to mention the bulldozing of Bakawal, poor people, and giving birth to a whole series of garrison communities as a result. And all of these things are reflected in our music and in our art, as a matter of fact. Eugene Hyde did a series of paintings following the erection of the gun court, famously dubbed Red Fence. And it read because it's dread. So Hyde did a whole series of paintings on that. Parbo Singh, you know how hand carts, donkey carts, and fishing boats have scriptures on it, or some kind of taxis have it nowadays, on trucks. Parbo made a beautiful painting of a man pushing a hand cart, and the sign on it said, "Fuck communism." See, these are things reflecting the impact it had on people. The propaganda coming from either side. You know, Michael Mann introduced what he called and what many of us enjoyed as or gravitated to, called democratic socialism. But the other side, the Jamaica Labour Party side, turned it into communism and started to use it as a threat on people. And of course, the 5 flights a day. All of these things in earnest midst as we fight one another for the power and the glory, Jah kingdom gone to waste. Or the meditations, all who running from Jamaica make sure is forever, but they ran away the next day. Pluto did the same thing. Actually, Ernie left for quite a while too. But then you have someone like Neville Martin, who was such a voice for democratic socialism that at a point in one of the elections, it might have been the one before the 1980 election, the PNP, I think, was a little behind. And on the release of My Leader Barnia, just surged ahead in the polls. So it's very impactful what music and the arts can do and how it influences pop culture and how we relate to pop culture and are influenced by these messages.
So, Sonia, I know you started out very importantly by reminding us of the history of the drum and its role in protest. Are there, coming forward more closely to the present day, though, are there artists that for you are especially important in that voice and that space?
Absolutely. And I mean, I could begin with the energy of Peter Tosh and the way in which the kind of advocacy, the sort of militant approach from a Peter Tosh gets sort of reignited and invoked by artists such as Chronics. You know, I mean, Isis mentioned Protege, but even Leela Ike, some of the women who we might not immediately associate with being militant or being advocates, that their lyrics are in fact doing some things that remind us in a kind of, you know, media-centric sort of way. If you look at the music is a way to understand the society. You know, the music tells us of what's going on in the communities. So yes, but I want to talk about Rastafari in particular, though. That Herbie mentioned something and really, you know, spoke quite a bit about it. But I want to center our attention on the way in which the music of Jamaica has been message music, has been music to, you know, really conscientize, to help people to understand themselves. And part of the problem that we've had in Jamaica is that we are busily every single day trying to run away from who we are. You know, whether it is the way in which we are combing our hair, whether it is, and these are all things that are reflected in the music, of course, whether it's the way in which we are dressing ourselves. You know, you can't be sleeveless. Yes, I'm bearing arms today, and I'm in the Institute of Jamaica. Some might argue one of the last bastions of colonialism, even in the context of this country. Yes, I said it. But, you know, it is that the music, and particularly Rastafari, have been the messengers telling us to get back to ourselves. And I want to highlight in particular something that I am closely meditating on. That Bob Marley, in 1979, released the song Redemption Song. And it is quite instructive that Redemption Song is the song that poignantly and you know, directly tells us about mental slavery. So the project of emancipation, if we were to go back to the words of Erna Bradbury, is incomplete. The project of emancipation is incomplete. And that mental slavery that we continue to embrace, you know, like I talk about COVID as a viral thing that we have, you know, accepted as humans to just carry around. We need to just not carry around mental slavery anymore. The artists in Jamaica have been telling us in so many ways, consistently, whether you think that what they're singing about is abhorrent or not. You know, when Bounty Killer says, looking at my eye, what do you see? You know, we need to be able to listen to our artists. They are telling us some very important things.
In journalism, we talk about giving a voice to the voiceless, and I think that's the same role that our artists play. So my last round of questions for the panel before I invite your questions, your comments. So get ready, folks. Isis, what for you? No, let me rephrase that. In this our 60th year, how strong are those voices of advocacy?
I think they're present, but we have to know how to listen. So I think that's the difficulty, is that we haven't developed the skills for adequate listening. We've been listening on the surface for too long. So even to Sonia's point, which is absolutely true, that it's right there. Bob Marley sang about this. Here's what you need to do what Garvey said, which is unchain yourselves, from all the mental slavery. But what we don't have is instructions. We don't have a kit. I mean, it's printed. We can actually purchase the Garvey text, and he lays it out step by step, lesson by lesson, on how to actually free yourself. But the kind of sound bites that wind up in reggae music aren't enough. And when I speak with students at UE in a course like the reggae poetry course, and I ask them about the music they're listening to, they listen to all kinds of music. Everything's available. You can go to YouTube, you can stream things on Spotify, on Apple, wherever you're listening. So they're listening everywhere. But how are they listening? What do they do with what they hear? Yes, it hits the body and it makes you move in a way. You nod your head, you sway your hips, you do whatever the latest dance is. But how are you actually engaging with the lyrical content? And then for the artists that are making the music, how are they able to convey a message that they don't fully know how to convey? They want there to be advocacy, they want there to be change, but they don't have the tools themselves to instruct and guide individuals on how to achieve that. So I think that's the part that's missing. It's this critical thinking, critical reflection on the works. That's what I'd like to see more of in 2023 and going forward, because I think it's been absent for too long. Where artists can make it plain, to borrow a phrase from Malcolm X, where artists can make it plain, that's when you'll have change. Until then, it's all just hyperbole. Free yourself. Live up. What does that mean? How do you do it? How does anyone do it? No one knows. We need that.
And let me follow on that, Herbie, by asking about response to the advocacy. Because sometimes you see a political response, as for instance, Africa singing "Don't Cry, Mr. Bunting, you can't fight crime" like that, and then National Security Minister then invites her to Parliament to sit in the visitors' gallery as he recites a list of programs, But that look of horror on your face. But generally speaking, ISIS talks about us needing to be able to listen. But when the advocates speak through the music, is there a response? Is there change? Is there the reaction that you would want to see in response to the cause?
Sorry, I've been instructed. Is there an advocacy that I'd like to see?
Just to remind all of you that you guys are coming up next. I get your questions, and we have mics. So once you put up your hand, somebody will come to you. I'm just letting the panelists answer this last set of questions.
Well, one of us tried to figure out how to turn off the cell phone.
You want me to rephrase the question?
No, how do we respond today?
Correct.
In general, that's nutshell, that's the question. Dancehall, sound system, Sonia. Many of us of Jerry's generation and my generation, Norman's generation, had good times at sound system dances. Coxsone, Prince Buster, Duke Reed, Barbecue Lawn, all the places. Liberty Hall as well. Used to have great Success Club. And the education we got there from the music, from those who were in the dancehall space, is what shaped us. And the reaction is who we are today and the work we do. I'm not a singer, I'm not a musician. So I use this forum to get beneath the surface of the music, the good time feeling, the sweetness of the music, and try and see what's inside of the music. How does a dissonant chord, for example, reflect the strange fruit hanging from a southern tree? How does an off key reflect something that's not so nice? And that's, in one way, a response. A more physical and audible response is, for example, what I mentioned earlier on. If a struggle Martin could lift the the what you call it now, the response to what the People's National Party, what was a bit flat at the time, way beyond into the 60s in terms of the poll result, not the result, these guys who go on and take the polls, what do you call them? Pollsters, thank you. That's a response because it related to the people. My leader, Barnia, we joked them with this Cuban school. People saw the results of certain things. And by being reminded of it, we're able to react at the polls. But there are other kinds of reactions too. Some negative, others quite positive. Looking at my 9, Sonia just quoted from that. Here is an artist who is saying, look, without education, without the attention to the social conditions in which too many black Jamaicans must live, are forced to live, despite which party is in power, it does not really improve the amount of people living in squalor. Here is a young man saying to you, boy, if that don't change, you're going to look in my 9. I don't want to have to use it. I don't have to resort to that. But when a man's back is against the wall, as Claude McKay said, boy, it's only one thing you can do. One blow and try and take out what you can take out. Because your life means nothing. And these are reactions to that sort of lyric. And on the other hand, there's a lyric that says, "My shoot out and brain dog, come lick it up, man, come scrape it up," which is a whole other level of the violence in our society. Daddy, don't touch me there. Those kinds of violence. The psychological violence that people like Garvey have spoken about and which we have basically ignored rather than the teachings of Garvey be a part of the curriculum at every stage of our development. Garvey's writings aren't that complex that we can't start it with nursery rhyme level children, all the way up to the students that my 2 friends here supervise on campus. And so these are some of the reactions where you see a burning spear who have taken on Garvey as his mantra, and the amount of worldwide people who have been drawn to Garvey and Garveyism as a result, because the textbook wasn't working as efficiently as Burning Spear, among so many others. How do we react in South and Southwest Africa when Peter Tosh sings apartheid, African, stand up for your rights, when Bob sings Zimbabwe, when Pablo Moses sings about the MPLA and what was taking place in Angola. He has one song say, I'd rather, if I were in Angola, etc., etc. These are powerful songs coming from grassroots people. Didn't go to UA to study any such thing, but were exposed perhaps to Walter Rodney at Wembley Cricket Park, or some place like that, as most of us were. These are profound messengers, teachers, lecturers, scholars, prophets, call them what you like. And I think that our musicians reflect that beautifully. I'll close with my favorite Jamaican musician and one of my top musicians of all time, Don Drummond. When a man like this takes the return of Marcus Garvey to be our first national hero, and he makes a song called The Reburial, or Marcus Jr., among so many songs of, that he make. Not singing, instrumental, but how it made people like myself go and read about Mesopotamia because that's the name of one of his songs. What's Mesopotamia? I didn't learn that in school. I learned that by hearing a song and going to say, where is this place? What is it? Among so many other responses to music and the arts in general, poetry, dance, etc. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. And just before we go to the floor, Sonia, your thoughts on responses to the advocacy, whether official, unofficial, popular?
Dion, I sit here and I'm trying to not get upset. Um, how do we face the fact that we are the only people who are not taking our advice, our own advice? Jamaican music has empowered people. Herbie has just mentioned a whole set of them. South and Southern Africa in general. People in India starting their own revolution to give voice to the kinds of oppressions from prime ministers and apparatuses of the state that are there to oppress them. We are the only ones not listening to our musicians and taking our own advice. So the advocacy, we know that that's been there. And the reason we cannot immediately answer ISIS's questions laid out in the context of the fact that we don't know how to respond to the advice that we're getting is precisely because colonialism has left us with several Jamaicas that don't meet what M.G. Smith talked about as the groups that mix but do not mingle. So let me just squarely say that the fact is we are not facing the kinds of stigmas that keep us separated as people and see the people who are singers and players of instruments, particularly dance hall, reggae, going back to the indigenous genres of music, dub, we can name them, Naya Bingi, right? We and them don't meet. Okay? Let's face that stigma. We must play their music on the radio inside our homes, relieve our stress, but they cannot come into our house. That's the Jamaica we live in, guys. That's still the Jamaica we live in. And that if we associate with these advocates that we're talking about in the form of singers and players of instruments, we do it in a way that we can't go to road and talk about the fact that Bounty Kill are my friends. Okay? And I'm not trying to romanticize something that is, that we are not all faced with. I'm trying to allow us to think of the people amongst us who have been crying out. They have been our voices. They have been our voices, and we have not even as a people begun to honor them. That's what I want to say to you. We have not even as a people properly begun to honor these people who have been our voices, raised high. They have put Jamaica on the map, guys. Thank you. Now the Prime Minister them. So when you begin to denigrate everything that has helped to educate you, that has helped to position you as a proud black human being in the world, that has helped to help you to even think about self-sufficiency. When you denigrate all of that, and we can talk about the fact that that's embodied in Rastafari as a movement in this country, all right? When you begin to denigrate that all the time, like, where do you go from there? When I go outside of Jamaica, what I hear from people is that Jamaica is their example of how they should be in the world as black people. That's what they tell me. Only that the Jamaicans don't know this. don't know this about themselves, that they are the ones inspiring people around the world. So forgive me if I'm going off script, but these conversations sometimes get me completely thinking about the very things that are germane to our existence as Jamaicans, that we ourselves are not paying attention to that embarrassment of musical riches that we have.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It's interesting because when I was listening to Sonia speak earlier about our laws, vagrancy laws, and so on, and how they suppressed our being, and I wrote down rules are rules, because part of what infuriates me about the rules are rules debate is the proponents of the rules are rules argument to refuse to recognize that it's not that people are saying we support lack of rules and disorder, but that it's important to interrogate and to understand when rules are rooted in oppression and hate and self-hate. But that's another panel, perhaps. Okay, let's go to the floor. Hands up and we'll share. Okay, I'm just before you start to speak, sir, if you wish, as you speak, please identify yourself. If
from Portmore and downtown Kingston.
1 second, let me just
Yes,
say
ma'am.
this. Let me just say this. And just to say, if what you want to do is ask a question, if there's a specific person it's for, you can say it. If what you want to do is to share a comment for us to provoke thought, that's fine as well. All I ask is that you remember there are a lot of people. All I ask is that you recognize there are a lot of people to speak, so you keep it as short as possible.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
First thing, I want to commend Mr. Herbert Miller. You, sir, I'm glad that you bring back this thing down here, sir. And two winners got plenty like me, don't go on website. And thank you for doing that, sir. And the theme is very important. And let I tell you, sir, since 1962, all we do is substitute the white man and put in the black master them. And them, when them are going over there in constituency, them have to go with police. The University of the West Indies, which is top 5 in the world, I'm glad for that. But remember, it is a bastion of colonialism and neo-colonialism, except for a few people up there, like the one who write Marcus Garvey. And madam, I don't know your name, but you're speaking like the voice of the people. And I want them up and know, say, I know Kingston 6 and Kingston 8 run Jamaica. Rastafari and Marcus Garvey put your name up. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Okay, we're over this side of the room now. Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce myself. Linval Golden, born in St. Catherine, Mendes, Jamaica. And this question is for the wonderful gentleman there, because when you go back to 1962 from independence, I went to England in 1964. You mentioned Rica Rodriguez. I got Rica Rodriguez to play in our band, a band called The Specials. We were the band who told the world Nelson Mandela was in prison for 21 years. That's where I'm coming from. And my question right now is, obviously it's lyrically, and obviously I look at the great Bob Marley, and Burning Spear, and I go back to from John Note, go right through the Alton Ellis, gave me one advice in London. The advice he gave me, if you're willing to help yourself, help will come to you. I believe in that. That's from Sir Alton Ellis. My question is, when it comes around to lyrical content, especially what's going on today, the lyrics, and I listen to some of the artists and talking about the dunce, which I come from a period where Bob Marley helps educate us through music. The Rastafarian movement gave us, what did it give us? Roots and culture, which we never have before. As I say, from 62, Jamaica was independent. So from there, so I went to England in 64. So Bob Marley and the music from that period has uplifted me, right from Prince Buster, Derek Morgan. And we talk about the rude boy thing, right? Dan Livingston wrote a song, A Message to You. We got that song, massive seller for him. We record that song as a special. People thought it was us who wrote the song.
Hurry up a
But
little
it
bit,
was,
sir. I'm going to hurry up a little
yes,
bit.
it was Dan Livingston. My question, right, how do we uplift the young people through music when it comes to the lyrical content when they're talking about the dunce?
Is there anybody in particular you
Who's
want
doing
to
that?
answer?
By one gentleman there.
Mr.
Yes, it's
Miller. Okay.
lyrical content, yes.
Thank you so much.
How do we uplift them to give them lyrics? Is there enough lyrics there to uplift them like what it was in our days when Bob Marley said, get up, stand up for
All
your
right.
right.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
need it, yeah.
There are a lot
you.
of young people, young artists, that is, who are quite uplifting. You have people like Sizzler, Capleton, Protege, Kabaka Pyramid, Esset Chronics, young ladies such as Janine and them two young people, I tell you the rest of them. We do continue to cultivate such what we call culture artists and give thanks to Jason, the man from Raytown, Rico, with that song, Rudy, This Is a Message to You, among so many others. Man from Warwick, Lumumba, etc. We are hearing, and many of our young people too are hearing.
Thank you. I'm going to come to this side. When I come back to here, Jerry Small has his hand up. I'd love somebody to get a microphone to him.
Leon, can I just
Please.
add a little bit
Please.
to the question here? Because there are some specific things in relation to educating our young people so that the lyrical content, which is what I hear you saying, can shift. And I want to suggest two things. One is that, let me make a comment before the suggestion. One is that the lyrical content can't change unless the context in which we are living will change. All right, that's the first thing. So there's no disassociation that we can make between the context we're living in, who we are, and the lyrical content. It's not going to change. But there are some things that I want to suggest that could be done. And these are things that you said to yourself, but they're so obvious. Like, how is it that nobody's doing this? One is that music teachers in Jamaica, well, first of all, the Ministry of Education has a unit related to music education. And the music teachers in Jamaica are teaching accounts. They're teaching other things in schools. There are schools that do not have any music program at all. I want to also suggest that in 1974, there was a report to the Office of the Prime Minister by a man called Orlando Pattison, who many of you will know that name because he did a lot of extensive work in terms of researching inner city communities and came up with all kinds of things that made him write fabulous things like The Children of Sisyphus, literary works and so on. In that report to the Office of the Prime Minister back in 1974, he said to the then government, every community should have their sound system. That was a recommendation that he made. Of course, the government didn't take him up on it. But the fact is that every community has their sound system. Many, in fact, sound systems in some communities. What I'm saying is, from way back when, there was recognition that if we were to invest in music education, we could in fact replace guns with musical instruments. And you say to yourself, that's not kind of obvious.
Can I just add one more comment, though, regarding dunce, like specifically? And this is right in line with what Sonia was saying about the context. The social context has to change. The first place someone hears dunce is not on the radio. It's in a classroom from a teacher calling them dunce and organizing the classroom in a particular setup so that the kids in the front are smart, anyone in the back is dunce. So it's learned very early on. Parents, when they see their children that come home, they are querying them about why do you have a dunce grade here? Why is it that you don't have 100? You must be dunce. So the dunce is not coming straight from the music. The music is reflecting what's going on in the culture. So there's a great concern about where you rank, right? And that matters greatly in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So I think when we consider the music that's talking about a dunce culture, we need to take that step back, that critical step back and say, well, what's going on in our culture that we would have this? And then consider how that word is being reappropriated to be something else, right? Because it takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of intelligence to actually successfully scam someone. And we want to think about how, and I pointed to the example of Valiant over perhaps someone like Skang and their use of dunce, to consider how Valiant is asking us to think about the scammer as someone who's taking a last resort. They've been judged out, probably from age 5. They've been judged out of the system. You've been deemed dunce. You don't really get out of dunce. Once you start dunce, once you are labeled the dunce, you don't really leave that marker behind. It's your nickname in the community, all of these things. It's very difficult to move past it. So we want to think about, again, the social context that brings some of these words into fruition.
May I just take a quick moment to also answer your question about how do you impart to young people. ISIS also teaches a course on campus. You want to tell them the name of the course?
Reggae poetry. So in a course like this is what we do. We explore the lyrics and understand, well, what's happening, right? On a literary level, what's happening on a poetic level, what's happening in these spaces. And again, just to kind of hail up Valiant, he's said in interviews that he loved reading and he loved literature classes. So we can see why the storytelling would have a different kind of level, if you will.
Thank you so much. This side?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Blake. 2 things stood out to me in the conversation on the platform. 1, disconnect. 2, roadmap. And the truth is, we are all disconnected. Even the artists that you are praising, musical, the magical messages and lyrics that other people take as a roadmap for their own liberation is not inducted within Jamaica. It isn't even inducted within the artists themselves who are making these words, singing these words, imparting these words. I've had connections with artists, and I would say to them, you all are the most powerful group here in Jamaica. Politician has to pay tens of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars to get an audience, whereas people are paying millions of dollars to come and see and listen to you. Certainly, your influence is greater than the politician. Your power, because the mass at all levels are listening to you, is greater than those who can only put a message to a part of the society, a divided part. Sadly, they have never been shown a roadmap of how to translate the gift and the power that they have. So the whole thing becomes a disconnect, and they themselves are disconnected. So at the end of a fantastic performance, a man a look a girl, a man a look a spliff, a man a look a ball of coke, he's looking for his gunmen friends, or how much they have made in scamming or whatever. Roadmap, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. It has to start with the mind.
Okay, I'm going to wrap you there, sir. Thank you so very much. Powerful words, but I do want to share with some others. Okay, so the microphone is here. Go ahead, comment, please, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Kathleen Amadon. I've done a fair number of exhibitions and publications on Jamaica. I've done a fair amount of publications and exhibitions on Jamaica. A little bit of a rainmaker for some of the projects with Herbie some time back. And I am fascinated by what ISIS is talking about right now in terms of, and this is a very different view than what's coming from the panel, the expectations on arts within a society. When you talk about Garvey having a roadmap and the steps and the way to go about it, and yes, a philosopher, a mind like that, does that. Is that a burden that we want to put on the arts? Are the arts not what we live for as a culture? I look at what Jamaica's been through. I look right now at what the Ukraine is going through. They're not fighting for land. They're fighting for their culture. Poland didn't stay together through the Soviet Union for anything but their culture.
You raised an important question. Perhaps we could allow
I would
someone
love
to
to hear
respond
what
now.
you have to say about the relationship between culture and knowledge and finding a path.
Thank you.
I think that's a really great question. I think we shouldn't put a burden on artists. I think artists should have the freedom to express what they feel. But what we need to put into practice is ways of exploring the arts, of analyzing the arts. And that's, I think, what we are missing overall in Jamaican culture is that interrogation of the arts, not judgment, but the interrogation, right? So we're too often just saying, no, that's terrible, or yes, that's wonderful. But where's all that space in between? Where's the answer to the why question? Why is it wonderful? Why is it terrible? What is it that it's making you feel? That's when I said the critical thinking aspect is the part that's missing. You know, and I think a lot of it goes right back into the education system, which is coming from this colonial system, how we're not able to free up the thinking, right? Once we start there with how we can just ask, well, why do we like what we like? Literally, why do we like the things that we like? I like this patty. Why do I like this patty? Just asking these simple questions, seemingly simple questions, and being able to answer them or start answering them will get us on the path to the freedom that we are all saying we ought to have. Right? You have to want to be free to get free. I think we're missing that part. We have to actually want freedom from whatever the thing is that's oppressing us in order to take steps towards freedom.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hello. Good evening. Good afternoon. In 1959, at the suggestion of some people, Norman Manley, it was from 58, Norman Manley caused our government-owned radio station to open and give expression to the popular mean people, and I mean rating, to the popular expression of the people, and the entertainment, the music programs, and the dramatic programs like Luan Rani and Prorata Powell and those kind of things. Those were the most popular on that because the people expressing themselves. And the most popular program on the JBC in Jamaica is the Teenage Dance Party. For 2 reasons. The Teenage Dance Party was based on music, and it was hosted and staffed by working class teenagers. And the working class teenagers come together every afternoon and they discuss the music and they play the music and they vote on which music they think should go forward. And them talk patois. You know what talk patois? Them talk bad English. Because they was not going to Jamaica College and St. Andrew. They was going to Kingston Technical. And they was going to all-age school, 1 and 2 high school youth in there like the Blakes. But they was talking ordinary English and they wasn't talking the Queen English. And the people uptown don't like when them children are listening to teenage dance party. Because them say them the teenager will talk for teenage dance party. And have no polish and have no and everything them all make the same comment. I like the beat, you know. They make them disparage. They use some mock and jeer. But the programs get more and more popular. Well now you have a television coming 4 years later in 1963. And you have a teenage dance party go up on TV, and you have other young people program. And when teenage dance party stopped, after the JBC strike, some of the militants of the JBC organized and asked Don Robotham, a teenager working at JBC, 19-year-old, and Wilmot, my name Billy Wilmot, elder brother, and myself to form a teenage discussion forum. I'm not going to stay upon that long. Anyway, I get into to radio, and it's music mostly I use. What is that? Must make the point? I get into radio, and I mostly use my radio program to explain to people how money people behave. I don't hate money people, but I remind my people them through the radio say, you have to get money, you have to make money. Because when you do have money, money people mostly group together and not like what you say. So you have to get money, you have to get some radio station for yourself and own it. Because I even work at a station work owned by a Rastafari. Have money. I do not like when I explain to the people how money people behave.
Okay, here's the thing, Mr. Small. Okay.
So we have to get some money. We have to earn some money.
Got you.
You have to stop drink liquor. We stop smoke ganja from 1986 and smoke cigarette.
All right, Mr. Small.
You have to get some money and own some radio station.
All right, Mr. Small.
Money people now go like when you explain how money people behave.
Thank you so much. I think just before I got to the next person from the floor, because I know people are saying get to the point, but certainly I'd love somebody on the panel to comment, because what I was hearing Mr. Small speaking about is how money and power influence the cultural expressions that the public gets to experience. And I'd love somebody to comment on that and perhaps to contextualize it in terms of where we are now. Anybody can grab that.
Give thanks, Jerry. There was a wait for you to talk. In fact, Dion might be able to remember that I said, why isn't Jerry on the panel?
She did.
All right. So, don't miss the point that Jerry's making. And he's kind of one of our, let me just big up Jerry. Let me just big up Jerry. I am probably 20 years younger than Jerry, or probably a little more, says Herbie, and Jerry memory more, it is sharp. Jerry has the memory of an elephant. And we need to be able to get that book, Jerry.
It needs money.
Yeah, but you said to me the last
It needs
time
money.
that the editing, we have the manuscript, Jerry. All right. Okay, so that's what I want to say. Jerry's book is coming out soon.
But no, it's a good point. Absolutely. We do need to own more, right? And so again, you want to bring up Garvey, right? It's about self-owning, right? We need to have spaces that are ours, and then we can determine what the sound is that people will hear so that we can make that powerful sound.
Okay, I think somebody, where are we now with the mic? Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My enslavement name is Archie. But no worry, everybody call me Tallman. Someone had made mention earlier about Garveyism in school. I wonder how much of us know that Marcus Garvey once said that when our politicians are found to be corrupt, stealing the people's money and so on, we must take them out into the square and flag them. Now do you think that politicians going to want to teach Garvey in school? No, they won't. I will forego some of the comments I had. But I want the panel to give us some pointers as to how we can put um, our thought or our talk into action. Because I would like to see this audience here get a bit more deep, meaning that the same people we're talking about, we're not seeing them here. So the onus is on all of us to try and get into the communities that we speak of, to try and educate those people to get them out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think, and I know there are other questions, but we have to wrap up because it's nearly 4, and remember there's musical expression as well. So I'm going to ask, in fact, I think that's a fabulous last question. I'll ask the panelists to answer, and in answering as well, give their own final thoughts on the way forward for this type of discussion. Start with you, Isis.
One thing that...
one more person.
Should I answer?
Because he's been really trying.
No problem. Let me just let the panel a response to that question. A response to that question, and then we'll go to the final question Mr. Miller has asked me to take. Go ahead.
I can hold my answer till the end. We can want to take all the questions?
Sure, we'll accommodate. The question was about how do we move forward and go into the communities and put this into action.
It's very, very simple. For all those who enjoy the internet, find on YouTube any of Garvey's words. Hear his words. Hear it coming out of his mouth. All right? You can also access the texts online and read a line out loud per day. You are what you eat. You are what you repeat. And I think that if we take in those words and let them out into the air, someone will hear them. And it's just a matter of repeating an action, because these words can become an action. And I think that's where you start, as simple as a sentence a day, and then each one teach one from there.
Thank you so much.
Also, if we all take our own small group as a community and have that level of reasoning, and it goes to that community, to the children, if we encourage them to do sort of poetry and songs with that uplifting melody in it, it's a way to getting them to understand better who we are and what we're all about. Don't just they take no way with how much a little picnic and wine and dance. Try and get them beyond that aspect of music to the nitty-gritty of the message of music.
I want to say that education is a process. It's not a moment. And that's part of what we forget in this country, that when we talk about education, we talk about action for the things that are systemic, the things that have come because of oppression, because of colonialism. Some of these systems from colonialism are still in place with us today. That process of education has to be continuous, and that we don't drop the ball. So that one of the things that we must do is to reorganize the way in which we think about education, even at the level of the schools, in our homes, in our communities, in our groups, or close. Let me tell you, there are people who I associate with, and there's nothing at all that I make pass when I hear them in any way suggested to me that they are uneducated about something. I try my best to be an educator, not only in the classroom, but in every place that I occupy, anywhere, anytime, any hour of the day.
Thank you. The question over this side? Where? Okay. You go ahead first, sir. You go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ozune Sandalia, and I'm a musician. And I was listening, and I'm very, very pleased and impressed by the way. I didn't know the two of you. I think I've heard your names, but we've not met. And so there are some thoughts that I would like to share, and I'm going to try my best to keep them as brief as I can. I noticed that there is no musician or artist on the panel. You're talking about music that we create as musicians and artists. You don't have one person there to speak on our behalf. Anyway, Herbie is a musicologist, but he's not a practicing musician or a songwriter. Okay. We are. No disrespect to you, Sir Herbie. And it's because of Herbie why we're here. We're going to be playing. Okay?
But you said you were going to be brief, sir.
Right. So, hang on. Allow me, please, respectfully. I've been waiting.
I'm being respectful,
Yes.
but we do also have to move on to our musicians who
And
are
I
waiting.
am the musician who will be playing. I'm the director of Jam's Big Band. So allow me, please. Thank you.
It's all right. Just go ahead with what you said.
So there seems to be a prevailing viewpoint, and this is what I want to stress, that musicians and artists are ignorant, inarticulate. We're deemed as lower class citizens, yes? And no. There is a prevailing viewpoint. Allow me to finish, please. Please. Thank you. And the reason for this is because most musicians come from a certain sector of society, right? And because of this, classism is very, very prevalent, and we are all judged. We're judged based on our social background or economic background. There is the elites versus the plebs. There is royalty versus the peasants, yes? And so even today, as we speak, we are seen as court jesters. We're just here as spectacles. Sadly, people enjoy what we do, and then when they leave and the enjoyment is over, it's back to regular living. Nobody thinks about what's happening with us. I'm gonna try and just keep it short, but
I'm going to ask you to make one. I'm going to ask you to make one more point so that I can move on and wrap up, sir.
Please, madam, just allow me.
Sir,
Thank you.
really?
I'm gonna finish.
Sir, really?
I am going to finish, but if you keep doing this, I can't finish.
Or you could just wrap up quickly.
Wow. So anyway, what I was saying is that the suffering that we as people go through, we the musicians, we the artists, we reflect that in our songs. And sadly, we are blamed for influencing persons when we are simply just the echoes of what's happening in our society. Yeah, I would like to stress that. I want for people to realize that all we are doing is trying to mirror what's happening. And with great power comes great responsibility. One of the things that I think that we need to do, and some of us are not as erudite as other persons, is to make sure that we understand the great responsibility that comes to writing these songs, arranging these songs, and so forth. Yeah, I thank you.
I'm going to stop you there. Thank you. Final comments?
Is it that you want a panel comment or you want the next question or comment? All right, so my statement and question, I guess it would be...
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. My name is Charles Hyatt. I'm from Good News, Jamaica. Charles Hyatt Jr., right? So, all right. So, my thing is this. Our music has been seen, or, you know, from I grew up, I hear that Jamaican music and reggae music is the sufferer's music, right? Fine. But I also know that we have fallen short because our music is not solution-oriented. When we're teaching our youngsters from primary school, when we're teaching them about Africa, we start with slavery. That is just foolishness. We haven't taught them about palm oil and the importance of palm oil in our history and the Gold Coast and those type of things. We haven't taught them about how our society has lived and created everything that we see here today was built out of the African continent. And the strength of the people that came before us. We start with slavery and that we are suffering, that Babylon are keep down and those type of things. Now, unless we change how we teach the youth, how is the conversation going to change? How is the conversation going to change when we're not highlighting the positive things about us, that we have impacted the entire world? We heard somebody say that people are waiting for Jamaicans and they look at Jamaicans and as been inspiration. But all we do is plan, and don't have any solution and solution-oriented comment and
Okay.
execution.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll ask the panelists now to give just a final thought on the topic and where we're going. Go ahead.
Okay, let me start first with Ozoni. I am pretty sure that he was not suggesting that any of us up here considers musicians and artists as court jesters. And if that's what he's doing, then he and I will have to have it out later on. Ozoni has been given every opportunity I can provide to express himself as he just did. When he said Herbie, I didn't know who it was. When I looked and I saw him, I asked you if you would take him as one of the last questions. But particularly as a brilliant musician who is the director of the Jam Orchestra and has been so since the inception of Groundation. So we know each other very well, and so I am going to suggest that what he spoke about, while in some quarters it is a fact, oh, they are just some quaint little guys, some little natty head. But it sounded to me like we were talking like that. So I just want to be clear. To Charles now, all of us up here recognize the teachings of Marcus Messiah Garvey. All of us here understand the importance of Kwame Nkrumah, Agustina Neto, Amilcar Cabral, the great Patrice Lumumba, and the African Americans and the Jamaicans from Kume to Count, who have taught us how to think of ourselves pre-slavery. That's how we know about Kush. That's how we know about so many things. I just said earlier on, Mesopotamia is one of the earliest civilizations that gave roads and you call that sewage and stuff like that to the civilization. It didn't start in, and I made it clear, I did not learn these things in school. I learned this from the dread, from the brethren in the hill, from Kensington Park and Dunoon Park and these places, Beaumont Garden, where I was exposed to people like Stennett Carcombe, among others. Not my teachers at school. I learned to read and write through them, but how to apply that to history and sociology, I learned out there from my brethren, them, my elders, who if I ever even attempted one day to duck school, I'm saying, youth, what you deal with? Go to school, man. So that was in response to Charles, my friend again, and to Ozoni, my friend. That the clarity, I don't think, was conveyed by any of you that these folks sitting in here see you anything less than the brilliance you have brought to us. And we associate you with the Marleys and the Toshes and the Spears, Coltrane, Miles, and Monk. Thank you.
Thanks. Sonia, final thoughts?
Thank you, Dion. Jamaica, Jam Maker, Jamaica. There are all kinds of ways in which we render that name. It is a sacred word. This is a sacred place. We have produced some very sacred things which we unfortunately do not fully appreciate. And my final thought is that we must begin by whatever means necessary without fail to appreciate what it is we have given the world, to appreciate ourselves, because it is out of our souls that these riches have come. We must listen to our musicians, no matter how abhorrent they might sound to you in the moment. Try to figure out what they must say and why they sing that. I think that it is about who we are as a people. It's really about who we are as a people.
It's about who we are as a people, how divided we are as a people, how much it is that we must, as a people, begin to face ourselves and who we really are. We need to stop running away from who we are. And so, if I have a wish in 2023, it is that let the music be our guide. There are ways in which we're looking to. No, that's not me at all. My phone is very disciplined. I want to say there are ways in which we are looking to all kinds of entities and beings beyond ourselves to do the work that we must do with ourselves, for ourselves. Let us get back to work. The project of emancipation is yet incomplete.
Thank you. And Isis?
My final statement, I suppose, is that we need to judge less and question more. Just set aside all the judgments and just ask the why questions and be prepared to do the why work. We need to listen with new ears. So simple, just listen with new ears. We don't have a dread friend to ask, then go find a book. iNation sells all the books. You don't have the money for a book, use a small amount of money to access the internet. It's right there at your fingertips. Ask the questions. You will find the answers, but you first have to ask the questions. So listen with new ears, cast aside judgment, and question more.
Thank you all so much. I hand you back over to Herbie.
For a final comment. That's what Groundation is all about. To pose the questions, ask the question, contemplate the questions, and try and find the answer.
Thank you all so very much.
Thank you all so much. Now, I'm back at my MC role. Thank you so much, Diane, Sonia, and Isis. Whoop. Thank you, thank you. Well, there's never a Groundation without music punctuating that which we have spoken about. You know, when you find those beautifully punctuated essays and stories, it enlivens it, you know. And so this evening, as the gentlemen clear the stage, we have a set of very sharp musicians. And the repertoire this evening will focus on songs that reflect what the period we discussed this a while ago was all about. Colonialism, federation, independence. The selections will address that. Now, before I go any further, I should have said earlier on to Vivian Crawford that this evening and this entire month's Groundation is dedicated to him and what he piloted us through as cultural custodians at the Institute of Jamaica. His institutional memory, his depth of knowledge, his ability to keep us on keel is very, very important, especially to someone like Herbie Miller, who have never before worked in a structured situation such as the civil service. And there are many times when the wind was taking my vessel somewhere else, and he had to bring it back in because he didn't want me to end up wearing short pants somewhere else. So we dedicate this entire month's Groundation to Mr. Crawford's leadership. The musicians for this evening are all seasoned and with wide open ears to the sort of things that we have discussed here. Um, I want to bring to your attention, all of you. I want to bring to your attention an event that will take place here on Thursday afternoon. It's called the Jamaica Sierra Leone Family Reunion. The Jamaica Sierra Leone Family Reunion. And it's called Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. This Thursday, the 9th, right here in the lecture hall at 2 p.m. Our presenters are Professor Clinton Hutton, who will talk about the transatlantic trade. He'll add to that the journey from here to Nova Scotia and from Nova Scotia to Sierra Leone. Hence, it's a family reunion because Professor Rosalie Hamilton, who I saw walk in just when we started, is the honorary consul of Sierra Leone in Jamaica. The professor is in the back, and we please acknowledge her. So she will also talk to us about how the consul or the consulate will function in Jamaica. We also have Kwanle Kamara from Sierra Leone on the bill, and he'll talk about the living, oral, and physical traditions in Sierra Leone that reflects Jamaica. We'll have Mama G from Flagstaff, the Maroon community in Flagstaff, which is where the Maroons, 600 plus of them who were sent back to Africa, Sierra Leone, came from. And when they came back to Jamaica, post-slavery, to work as indentured workers, they reestablished their commune there. So don't miss it. There'll be a fashion show, of course, from a Sierra Leonean fashion designer whose name I'm not going to attempt to tell you, but be it known that she'll be here. She is here. Would you stand, please? There she is. We don't know your name, but we acknowledge you. Give thanks for coming back home, sister. There'll be the mystic revelation of Rastafari with horns and the talking gleaner, Big Youth. The Luther Continuum man. So keep that in mind. The Price of Memory, February 10th, on Friday, takes place, I think it is the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre, UWI campus. It's free, and another Pan-Africanist, another one of our well-thinking scholars, Professor Michael Barnett, has put this one together. The screening of the quintessential documentary on reparations and the transatlantic slave trade, 6 to 8:30 p.m. at the Neville Hall Lecture Theatre, UA. Thank you so much. Now we'll turn things over to the Jam Orchestra, and I'll invite Ozone to say a few brief words because we want the music to be. Please, this is one of my young, excellent proteges who's a facility on the upright bass, the electric bass, stylist. Let's see, how are you? Jamelia is so much, and she is helping to coordinate the whole Sierra Leone thing. Take a few minutes.
Blessings, everybody. All right. Thank you guys so much.
And by the way, she'll be the upright bassist with Mystic Revelation of Rastafari.
Blessings, everybody. I take it that you've been full join, the environment so far. Give it up for yourselves for turning out to the first Groundation session. And happy Black History Month, happy Reggae Month. Big up yourself. I just want to say big ups to the Sierra Leone delegation for being here. Can we just welcome them? Yes, can you stand? Yeah. All right. And we have so far one of the artists who will be performing here on the soil. He's called MDG. So we look forward to having you. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming and full joy.
Music spoken here. We don't need to say anything else. I've already said, even though I was not allowed to complete my thought, but that's quite all right. We are, as musicians and artists, we can be outspoken, and we recognize when we are trying to be shut down, whether advertently or inadvertently, but all is well. So we will let our music do the talking right now. Beginning with August 1962. All right, let's quickly do a quick tune, B flat. Okay, thank you.
destruction too. So I believe in all the triumph, there will be all the success. So let's just live in unity, progress and poverty. Let's all independence with it. Hey, hey! England to see for independence, and all the bus stop was so late. He will attend the conference, although from the difference of party. It was a very good art to see how these two politicians shaking hands when they gain victory. Come now, independence is good for the young and the old, also for me and you. Yes, independence is good for whole population, only over to you. So I believe that we try your best. It will be great and all success. So let's live in a unity, progress and poverty. Let's all live in a poverty. Hey, hey! England, they come up very same day on a two different tons of plane. That is 1 to 1 man to go there. They separate back downtown to Kingston, but still very on the breeze. For the independence, a little Sergeant Joyce, all of the West Indies. Now independence is good for the young and the old, also for you and me. Yes, independence is a great population, all they can rust in liberty. So I believe in all of the best. It will the only greatest success. So let us live in unity, progress and poverty. All of you sing with me, hey!
Forward march!
Gather together, my brothers, since we're independent. Join hands to hands of children, son, we're independent. Jump and blue. The Lord is still with you, because the time has come. We're gonna shake your hand to make a run. Independent. Brothers and sisters, give praise unto Joel Alexander. Independent. Brothers and sisters, give praise unto to Mr. Manley. Independent. Don't be suddenly. The Lord is with you, because the time has come. We can take off from Jamaica run. Sing song. We're independent. Oh, oh, oh. Gather together, the brothers, we're independent. Because the time has come. We're gonna take our strong, we wait a run. Because the time has come, we take our run, we're independent. Because the time has come, take our run, we're independent. Joy bells ringing, all Jamaica singing, what independence bringing, and let's go and go. Joy bells are ringing, the perpetrator is fighting to bring Jamaica tide, independence I know. Bells are ringing, all Jamaicans are singing, want independence, bringing independence I go. Joy bells are ringing, that's the right is fighting to bring Jamaicans tidings, independence I know. Let's get together, all the people are singing, all the people is bringing, independence I know, bringing. Let's get together, all the people are singing, all the people are bringing low. Let's the people, let's go. Let's together go independent. Let us join and sing independent. Let us join and sing independent. Let us join and sing independent. Let us join and sing.
We would like to thank you, Sir Scotty, Vivian Scott on vocals and trumpet. Please give it up for him. Yeah. Yes, we originally had Sir Everton Pessoa, but he was not able to make it, so we really thank you for filling in at the last minute. So we will continue our celebration with, of course, Freedom Sounds.
out and down, going from home to home, making disturbances. Time you stop doing those things, you hold Tracy back. Come on, everybody, sing with me. Don't tell you wicked way over my people. Don't tell you people way over my people. Feel the trombone. My dear, you bring misery, going from home to home, making disturbances. Time you stop doing those things, you hold Jezebel. How long shall the wicked reign over my people? So long shall the wicked reign over my people. Time you stop doing those things, you hold Jezebel. Long shall the wicked reign over my people. So how long shall the wicked reign over my people? How long shall the wicked reign over my people? How long shall the wicked reign over my people?
The jam orchestra.
I
Amendment. Remember, we'll be back here next week.